back to the Completely Clueless podcast. My name is Sarah Alice Liddy, and I am here with my wonderful, amazing partner, Olivia.
Hello.
Welcome back, baby.
Thank you.
Okay, so truth be told, this is actually the first time I'm recording in 4 months. There will be an episode that comes out before this, but honestly, I was really, really nervous to do this by myself for the first time. Like, I've had a lot of anxiety leading up to it, and I didn't really expect that because I've been doing this for like nearly 3 years with Audrey, but I've always had somebody else. And now this is officially mine. And you're here too to help.
I'm also here. Yes.
Yes.
It's not mine though.
It's not yours, but you are here to help. I want to get into some clueless moments because a lot has been sprung on me in the last 15 minutes. I think I have a UTI. I was sitting up on the toilet burning pee and I was like, oh my God, of course this would fucking happen right now. And we also went on we call it a Fallelujah.
Fallelujah vacation.
Yes, Fallelujah vacation. Olivia has like a family house that's near Salem, Massachusetts. And so we've kind of had this tradition where we go every so often in the fall. We try.
Typically in the fall, at least once. Yeah.
Yeah, we try to. I think last year we didn't because I had just been hired full time.
Yeah, I think so.
But we recently got back from our Fallelujah vacation, which was absolutely amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
Like there was a day, I told you this, that we were in Boston, and I don't think I've like felt that happy in a really long time. But then it feels like we came home and Crash Burn City happened.
Back to reality, yeah.
Literally. Like I felt super anxious, like I threw up the other day because I definitely food poisoned myself. I drank expired creamer. Not cute. And you got hit by a car.
I did, but that was on our Fallelujah vacation.
But it was on the last night of our Fallelujah vacation.
That's true. Yes.
Wait, so I want you to explain the story because you've never explained the story from start to finish. So tell the people, how did you get hit by a car? Also, when Olivia texted me saying like I got hit by a car, I thought their car got hit by a car. And a lot of people were under the same impression too.
I don't understand that, but
you're like, I don't get it. Okay, tell them the story.
Because I got hit, I guess if my car had gotten hit, I would have said like I got into an accident or somebody hit my car.
Yeah. I don't know. I really thought you got, no, not you. Your car got hit by the car. So tell everybody, what happened?
Yeah, so I ventured off on my own to go pick up takeout.
Yummy.
From this restaurant in town.
Yeah.
I drove there, it's like, 10 minutes away from the house we were at? Not even. And it's at this corner of like a 3-way intersection, right? So it's like on the corner of a main road, and then there's like a left-hand turn off, So you can, going straight down the main road, you can turn
to the left
onto this.
Right, there's 3 different sections.
Yes, exactly. So I parked across the street, like where the fourth side of the intersection would be.
Yes.
That makes sense. So across the street from the turn off the main road.
Yeah.
I parked. I parked. And I looked at this intersection. It's a very dark intersection. I know the lights were on probably after I got hit.
Literally after you got hit. Like when I went, just finish your story and then I'll get to this part. Yeah.
So I look, and so there's 2 crosswalk options. So on the main road, there's only one crosswalk
to go over, over to the other side.
And then there's the crosswalk over the like turn off road.
Right.
So I made the conscious decision not to jaywalk, and I walked away from my car down towards the crosswalk. That was like not on the side of the street that I was on. It was kind of like I walked down the sidewalk for a bit. Look both ways. Everybody on the main road had stopped. And then I was like, okay, walking. I made it maybe like not even halfway across. And I was hit by a woman that was making a left-hand turn from that side street.
Right.
So I looked 2 out of the 3 ways.
So you didn't look the third way?
I did not look the third way. I
that's
looked
okay.
both ways, but not that other way.
Honestly, I feel like it's her job, to make sure she's not going to hit a pedestrian, especially when like the main road had stopped for you.
Yeah.
So
And she was the only person of the people that stopped that had a stop sign. The main road doesn't have a stop sign.
oh, she has a stop sign.
She had a stop sign because you have to make a left or a right hand turn
Yeah.
to get onto the main street from where she was. So she has a stop sign, but she had turned left onto the main street and hit me in the crosswalk. Yeah.
Do you like remember? Like, do you remember what it felt like to get?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like
Ouchie.
Yeah, it kind of felt like getting tackled, like in football or something.
I've never been tackled before.
Really? Okay. Well, it felt like a large person kind of like body checking you.
Damn. Because to explain that you like rolled up onto the car.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I rolled up.
Okay.
So she hit my left side. I kind of like slammed my head into the hood of the car.
Yeah.
It was like a sedan. It was like a small car, like a normal.
Which also was probably a good thing.
Yeah, oh, totally. I mean, if it had been like a Jeep or a truck, like, I mean, so I kind of like hit and then I sort of just like fell on the ground.
And do you remember like what her reaction was?
So it was actually really interesting. So this guy, all of a sudden, I'm like
on the ground.
Like I didn't pass out, but I was sort of like, whoa,
what just happened?
Yeah. And this guy comes running over, like yelling at the woman that had hit me. And he was like, we were just fucking talking about this. Like, I told you needed to watch the street when you're driving. I'm like, oh gosh, this is a whole other thing that I am not involved in.
Was she a kid?
No, she was in like I don't know, probably late 40s, early 50s. She was like a middle-aged woman.
I think an investigation needs to happen. Like, if whoever this man is like, is this the first time? Like, what?
I know. So she comes out and I'm up by that point. Like I stood up and I'm like, I'm okay. Like I'm gonna go sit on the side, get out of the fucking street.
Yeah.
And
no one offered to help you up?
I think I got myself up before anybody really.
Okay.
Like it wasn't like I was lying on the ground incapacitated. I had sort of like I was like crouched almost, like on my knees.
That's why you got that scrape on your knee.
My scrape. And the woman that had hit me was like, should we call the police? And this guy is like, yeah, I'm calling the police.
Okay.
I'm like, oh my God.
Did you describe this woman to the police? Because now I'm concerned.
But the police came. So I went over and sat.
Is like out in society driving. Do we call the police if you hit somebody? I mean.
I'm sure she was in shock. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
true.
I don't, I don't hold it against her. She was very nice. So she like pulled over on the side of the road. I was sitting on the sidewalk next to near my car. The guy called the cops and the cops came very quickly. I mean, maybe like a few minutes. Mm-hmm. It wasn't it's a small town.
Yeah.
Right? So before I went in the ambulance, it's a very funny like dynamic of everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Because nobody could figure out, first of all, nobody knew what gender I was.
Yeah.
Nobody knew.
But your license says Olivia.
Yeah, but I hadn't taken my license out at that point.
Yeah, okay.
And so like the cops are up and they're like, who got hit by a car? And the woman that hit me was like, he got hit by a car. And then someone else is like looking around like, who? And then the other cop is like, she got hit by a car. And then the other cop points to the woman that hit me and says, oh, she got hit by a car. And I'm like, I got hit by a car.
It's me.
Like nobody knew. Everyone was so confused. And then they were also surprised because I like said they were like, how old are you? I'm like 27.
Yeah.
And all the people that thought I was a boy were like, really? Like, whoa, you look so young. You're like a baby face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Yeah, the whole experience was so funny. I got to the hospital and you're like in a stretcher and I was just like, this was not on my bingo card for this evening. And we also sort of determined that I manifested this.
Yeah, that is your fault.
it's my fault that you got hit for sure, because my anxiety will do like some weird shit. Like if you have anxiety, like you know this, or maybe just like sometimes people have like, you know, like irrational thoughts. Like I remember when I was a kid and I'd be in school and I'd hear an ambulance or a fire truck, I'd be like, oh my God, like is that going to my house? Like you're thinking the worst, right?
Sure.
So sometimes like, you know, because I love you, I'll think about like, oh God, like what would happen like if Olivia died? Or like, you know, something like got in a car accident. Like, you know, people like go through tragedies. Like, you know, like I'm literally watching Love is Blind right now. And like this, you know, one guy had all
cancer. Got cancer. Mom got cancer.
Like got cancer. Both of my sisters are gone. Like it's just crazy. Like the world is a scary, sad, unfortunate place sometimes. Yeah. So like I'll think about those things, and I was thinking about it literally the other day, and then this happened. So like I need to get myself out of this.
It,
I know. Do you want to show everyone your boo boo?
Oh yeah. Well, I put a Band-Aid on.
Flash that boo boo up. I'll put a picture on the screen of the photos I took of you in the hospital.
Honestly, I feel like the scratch on my knee is a little worse.
Oh, I also think you have somebody to thank.
Who? Me, myself, and I for being so strong and surviving.
Yes, you were so strong and surviving, and I'm very happy you're here. But the brand of Sweatpoint.
Oh, yeah.
I think you should look in the camera and give them a shout out.
So thank you, Aloe Sweatpants, for sponsoring this video.
Not actually sponsored, but the story is I get into the hospital and Olivia's like giving me the rundown on their boo-boos, as the nurse called it, because she is a 4-year-old right now, because literally you just had like scrapes. Like the doctor came over to look at them and was like, I cannot believe like you are okay. Like you didn't break a leg. Like usually when this happens, people break their leg, like because how the car sweeps. Like he's like literally like, what the fuck? You got hit by a car and you're like, okay. And Olivia looks at me and goes like, I have this big scratch on my knee, but at least my Aloe sweatpants are okay. Like these are my favorite pair of Aloe sweatpants.
The green ones.
Yeah.
Like pretty cactus green ones.
Yeah. So
and I do. I have like a little scrape on my knee, but the pants are intact.
Literally, we're totally fine.
Fully intact.
So thank you, Aloe.
So I appreciate that, Aloe, because they are very expensive. So they're worth every penny.
Yeah. They're the best sweatpants ever. But that was like honestly the craziest thing to happen. And just like explaining it to people. Like, what the fuck? Like, oh my God. But I'm happy you're okay.
Yes,
and you're here to tell the tale.
Grateful, yes.
And we can laugh about this because I know it's very serious. But
well, it could have been, I think.
Yeah.
That's sort of my takeaway is like, you know, I'm lucky that it was a funny story.
Right. Oh yeah. Once I got to the hospital and I saw you were okay and told the doctors it had like checked you out, I was like, I can laugh now.
Yeah.
Because like at first I was like, what the fuck? Like I was in this state of shock. Right. Like what is happening? Like, are you okay? But then when I got to the hospital, like you were kind of like cracking jokes and you were like, look at my scrape. I was like, okay, like this could have been a lot more serious. Yes, we're very lucky the car wasn't going that fast. Right, yes. Like
because luckily she was making a turn, so she was coming from like
a
zero. She was at a stop. Right. She wasn't cruising down the main street.
And people cruise down the main street
going pretty fast.
Pretty fast. So proud of you for surviving.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
proud of you.
And I got a free CAT scan, and I don't have any tumors in my brain.
Oh, so it was a free CAT scan?
Well, it wasn't free. I mean, I probably get
insurance.
Insurance, and then if I have any medical bills, I'm making that woman pay for.
Oh, duh. I mean,
so they took a CAT scan of my brain, and they would have said, "Oh, you have a tumor in your brain."
Oh, okay.
If I had like, they're not going to ignore
right if there's another medical problem there.
But usually, if you want a CAT scan, you got to pay a lot of money for it, non-emergency. So it was nice to get a free one.
There you go. Yeah, and I'm honestly worried that woman is out living in society. Like the fact that this man had to tell her, like, what did we talk about?
I know, it was so bizarre.
And then like she like doesn't know whether to call the hospital. Like I'm just like a little concerned that she's out living life.
Oh my God.
You know,
it was so funny.
Yeah. But then another clueless moment that I was thinking about while I was on the toilet and my pee was burning was, okay. This is a TikTok reference. So if you don't know this, like just look it up on the internet because I do not have the full time to tell the tale. But this woman, Katie, found a rolled up carpet like 6 feet under the ground of her house when she was digging to try and build a fence. It's all over TikTok. I bet you've heard of it. Everybody is blowing up. And I feel like the clueless moment for the country right now, like everybody does not know the answer to this question, is what was in that fucking carpet? because they told her it was nothing. However, that's definitely not the truth.
I don't believe that for a second.
Because we also saw this TikTok
there clearly wasn't like a corpse rolled up, like full skeleton, you know, but there was definitely something on it, or they would not have like taken it.
Right. Because basically we had seen this TikTok the other night from a daughter whose dad is a detective, and he told her like they would have just left the carpet there if there was seriously nothing there. So he said that to her was like, they wouldn't have taken the carpet if they weren't even just like a little bit like sus about it.
Right.
And then he also said to his daughter that, like, she asked him, like, oh, would you tell the person living in the house, like, oh, we found something? And he said, no, we wouldn't tell them.
Yeah, and I fully believe that because it's not her business.
Well, and also, like, granted, like, she was literally live streaming the entire thing, which I was so shocked about. Yeah. Not that, like, girl, get your bag, like, you know, like.
But that she was allowed to.
Right. Like, allowed to, like, you know, film the cadaver dogs and everything, which was the craziest part about it.
They were so cute, those dogs. He was so happy to get his toy.
I know. He was like,
look
at me.
I'm so proud.
Doing such a good job. But yeah, I think the whole world is sus and clueless about this right now. So I had to bring it up, even though this will be like 2 weeks from now be posted. And
maybe there'll be more information.
Maybe there will be. I don't know. I hope so. Like, I was really hoping that, like,
that there was a body in them.
Yeah, sorry. Like, you know, I'm not even that religious, everybody, but I just felt like I couldn't say, oh, I wish there was a body. Oh my God. But yeah, I feel like that was another like world clueless moment that I just like had to bring up. So now I kind of want to get into the reason I'm having Olivia come on today, at least, is because we have a lot to talk about in terms of like us moving. Mm-hmm. Because so I think the last episode that we posted where Audrey had left, and then I'll probably briefly mention it in episode 1, in literally, I think 20 days, 19 days actually, I will be moving back home to Westchester.
Back with your parents.
Back with my parents in my childhood home, in my childhood home. I'll be moving back, which I did not expect after like literally moving out. Like, guys, it'll be under a year. I moved to my apartment last year, November 6th, and I'm moving back home October 25th. Yeah. The main reason I'm moving back home is because we want to move out together and we want to move into our own place. And basically, we started the apartment hunting process in August, which was super early because my lease ended November 6th. But I was sort of like wanting to kind of get out of my current apartment because, like, long story short, like, it's just not very functional for my life where I live. It's very far from work, very far from like the things that I really like. And I've discovered I am an East Side girly. I am XOXO gossip girl on the Met Steps. All my friends live on the West Side. However, like, I grew up going to everywhere on the East Side. Like, my pediatrician was there. My gynecologist is there. My endocrinologist is there. There was this place called Sarah Beth's that still exists, but it doesn't exist at the place that my family would go to on 90th Street. And my parents would always bring us there for breakfast for like big events. So like, I've just like have this like relationship with the East Side.
Well, your parents took you home to their East Side apartment.
They did. And so, yeah, I think there's always been this part of me that's wanted to live on the Upper East Side and everything. And so luckily you wanted to live there too. And it was also like close to where you were.
Yeah, it works for both of us, I think.
Yeah.
You know, logistically. In terms of, the places we like to go, the places we have to go for work.
Right.
You know, and your doctors and things like that.
Yeah. I guess we didn't really have to compromise on location then, because I was like going to say like, oh, like if somebody were to be with somebody, you know, and they're living on, they have, you know, like one person wants to live on the West Side or the East Side, like how do you compromise on that? But I feel like, did you feel like you wanted to consider anywhere else? I mean, you said Greenwich Village, but that was way out of our budget.
I never seriously I think when we were talking, like, you could live anywhere in New York and money wasn't an issue, then yes, I think Greenwich Village is obviously the place you want to be. But I never seriously considered that. I mean, that's not like realistic for us. You know, I had briefly considered like Astoria or something like over, but I know that you're not I didn't take that seriously.
I know. I was talking to my dad about this last night because one of my mom's coworkers lives in Astoria. I was telling my parents how a lot of your dad's like interns live in Astoria. And my dad's like, yeah, Sarah, like Astoria is popping. Like, I don't know what you're thinking and everything.
It is popping.
I
or at least there
know.
are pockets that are popping.
Yeah. Well, with a lot of people our age, apparently.
Yeah. Again, because it's affordable.
Right.
You can afford a decent space. And it's honestly, I mean, I was looking, some places in Astoria would be a shorter commute than the Upper East Side. And some places we were looking on the Upper East Side, for me at least, but probably for you. But, you wanted to live in Manhattan, so that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when anybody mentions, like, for example, like my roommate Liz will always say this about me. Like when somebody's like, oh, let's go to Brooklyn. I'm like, no.
But Astoria isn't Brooklyn.
Sure. No.
Astoria is like Queens, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I think like I just had this desire, to live on the Upper East Side. And if you were okay with that, I was going to go with that over Astoria.
Yeah.
So, but honestly, when we first started apartment hunting, I feel like we had a little bit of like an adjustment to make. Remember when we first started and we didn't like have an argument or a disagreement, but I think like we
weren't on the same page necessarily with certain things.
Yeah. I'm trying to, I wish I would have written this down. Sorry, bad podcaster. I'm like, what were we disagreeing about? I can't remember. Price range.
Price range. Well,
my ass was sending over these expensive ass apartments. So how this story ends is we were looking at this place on the Upper East Side to rent. Mm-hmm. The rent was
reasonable. It was in our range.
It was in our range. However, I was still going to have to ask my parents for some financial support.
But everything we were looking at was pushing that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't make a lot of money. So we were like ready to kind of
move forward with it.
Yeah, because we had loved this other unit in this building, and Ron, if you are hearing this, you are a terrible agent.
Okay, I thought you were going to say person. I was like, that's a little harsh. I mean, he was very nice.
Maybe I shouldn't say terrible person. Like, he just like...
He was a lollygagger. He was...
I just choked on my spit.
He lollygagged.
He was a He was a lollygagger. Like, if you've ever tried to apartment hunt in New York City, it is like the fucking Hunger Games out there. Like you have to be on it. Everything moves so quickly. Like you need to have your motherfucking ducks in a row. And I knew that going in this time because of my last experience. And so like I swear that first apartment in the same building like went up on the market and like 10 minutes later I had emailed Ron and was like, I want to see this apartment. And
it was already gone pretty
like
much.
And like or he like so the next morning he had emailed us and said, hey, like at mind you 8:15 and was like, I can show you the place at 9 a.m. today. We live in Westchester.
We were in Westchester at the time.
We were in Westchester, so we would have been late, and so we said no, like we could be there at 10, like whatever, but somebody saw it at 9 and it went.
And it was gone by the end of the day.
Right. Because we kept emailing and being like, can we come see it? And he kept pushing us off. Right. And then a week later was like, oh yeah, somebody came and saw it that day. Right. And I was like, couldn't you have just said that?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Because we'll look up elsewhere.
That is my problem with the whole real estate in New York is like, it's just so lying and seething and like, like I'm just like, can't anybody have loyalty? Like first come, first serve? Like if I email you first, like we get to see it first. Like I know it's not how it works, but it's just like so annoying. Technical difficulty just occurred. We were 10 minutes into the second half of this and my camera said there was an error and it deleted everything. So now we need to start from the beginning. But I just like to be transparent about that stuff because I do think it's awkward to like go from a natural conversation and then like
now we have to rehab
like
the conversation.
reproduce that conversation. So whatever. But basically where we had left off is that Ron was being a dick and making our lives very difficult. But he did make our lives a little bit easier for 0.5 seconds when he let us know that there was an apartment in that same building
that hadn't been listed yet.
And that we could go see it. And literally the second he messaged us saying like at 6 p.m. today, you can come see it, we were like, cancel everything. We are going to see this fucking apartment because of what happened with the last one. We went and saw it. The kitchen wasn't that great, but it had a lot of space. And basically, like, Olivia has a bunny named Radish who I will be adopting and I love very much. But he needs his space.
He requires square footage, as my mom says.
Honestly, I feel like that needs to be like crocheted into a pillow. She literally, like, I forget where we at.
We were at dinner.
Yes. And I was talking about how, like, when I'm looking for an apartment for us, I'm
factoring him in.
Yeah. And your mom was like, oh, Radish needs square footage. And I was like, yes, he does. Because Olivia currently lets Radish free roam in their bedroom and I can get some allergies sometimes. And he also will like jump up on the bed and like eat things sometimes. And so that was a compromise that we had to make. And you were very, very cool about it. And we're like, Radish doesn't need to be in our room. Like we can find another space for him. So something that I, considered when I was looking, and Olivia did look too. I was just saying me and like my perspective when I would look on Zillow or Street Easy, like I would try and make sure in the living space that we can fit a living space, a desk, because we both work from home sometimes. And Radish had like a big enough
his little
space where he could be. So that's what we really liked about this place. And it was in a great location, like a block from the 6 train. Oh shit, is that giving away? Oh well, I said
Upper
that.
East Side.
Yeah, I already said that we were moving.
And it was
to
in the 80s, and we're not living.
We're not living there. So, but basically, we saw the apartment, and literally like 20 minutes after we email Ron, and we're like, we want
to move forward.
Yeah, we want to move forward with this apartment. And that glimmer of hope was quickly crushed, really quickly crushed, because he sends over this long list of fees. And
upfront
fees that you need to pay in order to live into this building. And it's like, there's a gym fee. There's an enormously high credit to check the credit
report.
Check thing. And then also in order for the other people on the lease to get checked, which was me and Olivia's father as our guarantor, we needed to pay like hundreds of extra dollars for us to get our credit checked. And then
there's the broker's fee.
Yeah.
Which was 15% of the annual rent, which came out to like $8,000 for
literally.
us.
And I never had to experience that with my current apartment. There were no broker's fees. And then you said there was like a new law that has come in.
Just recently. I guess this was sometime in August. The real estate laws kind of went under this big change that was supposed to help like buyers and renters, but I think it really just screwed us over.
Because now the seller can put the broker's fee on the renter. It used to be that the seller would pay for it.
That the seller or the rent or the person who owned the apartment or was selling the apartment, whatever it was, would cover the, what is that called? The
broker's fee?
Commission.
Like
the commission for the real estate agents for both the the renter or the buyer and the seller.
Yeah.
But now they don't have to. They can choose to, but they're not legally required to. And so obviously a lot of people were not. And so then it falls on the
renter.
The renter or the buyer. Yeah.
Anyways, after we calculate all of these fees, it's $15,000 just to move there, like not even counting like movers, furniture, rent the next month. Like we were like, what the fuck? And I knew like my parents were not going to want to, were not able, willing, or they should not have to pay half of $15,000. And so I ended up having to sit down with my parents, sort of like spell out the realities that we were running into because of my lovely anxiety disorder. We had started our apartment search at the beginning of August, even though like my current lease is ending November 1st. And because I was kind of hopeful that we could like move sometime in September or early October, I also wanted to like make sure that we had a place to live. And I never looked on the Upper East Side before. So I was like, all right, like, how are we going to make this work and everything? So I have this conversation with my parents, and my mom, you know, is very gentle and says, like, I know you really want to move in with Olivia, and I know you want to start this next chapter, and like, nobody can afford it in this situation.
And it was shaping up that like this wasn't a rare or unusual case.
Right.
Everywhere we looked required a broker's fee, and we were looking the buildings that we were looking in
had
were
amenities.
Nice. Amenities. They were nice buildings. Oftentimes they had a doorman or
a gym
or like some
a
other
rooftop,
you know, like staff in the building that require to, you know, a salary, basically. And so, we weren't going to find a place that didn't require that wouldn't basically wipe both of our entire savings.
Right, exactly.
Plus a lot of money from your parents or my parents, you know, or both of them.
Yeah, because basically I think like the hardest thing about this past year for me has been finances. I've been very, very fortunate and privileged to not have to worry about finances. My parents, you know, helped me growing up and everything. And so when I had moved out, that was my first time becoming financially independent. And I quickly learned that I'm trying to remember the phrase. I'm never good at phrases. Like, I want to say sold myself short, but that's not it. Like, overextended my budget. Like,
spread yourself thin.
That is it. I spread myself way too fucking thin. And especially at the time where I moved, I had a lot more expenses related to the podcast. Over the last, like, the summer, it's been a lot easier. And also, I think at the beginning, my parents, like,
they didn't understand.
They did not understand. They were like, what are you talking about? Like,
just go out less.
Yeah.
Like,
and then like I ended up having this breakdown at the beginning of the summer where I was like, go look at my bank statements. Like, I don't go out. The only thing I'm spending money on is rent and groceries. And like, the only reason I can go out with my friends is because Olivia will pay for me to go out. Like, I was really, really stressed out. And again, like, I am very privileged that Olivia would pay for things, that my parents would come and pay for groceries sometimes. But I felt very unheard and unseen for quite a long time. And I think the hardest and the time where I felt that the most was in the winter, which was really hard for me because usually my anxiety and my depression gets a bit worse in the winter, like most people's do. So it, like, when we were talking about this and trying to make this work financially, like, I pretty quickly was like, Olivia, like this isn't going to work. And I don't want, and I don't think you wanted it either, to like try and make something work that like, I just think
wasn't realistic.
Yeah. So gratefully and very fortunately, my mom was like, come live home for like 6 months. You can save as much money as you want. Like, you won't have to worry about your expenses, and you can, you know, save as much as you can, which is a very amazing thing that I get to do. And I'm very lucky because I like, otherwise, like, I would just need to move home full time. And so, yeah, that's sort of like why I'm moving back home, and we've put our apartment search on pause. One thing that I mentioned in the old recorded episode that never recorded, that I do want to say here, because I do think it's really important when moving to the city, that I didn't really consider the first time, is when Olivia and I go and look at apartments now, we are also looking at the location, like location hunting. Mm-hmm. We usually like walk like 3 blocks each way of the apartment and look to see if there's like coffee shops or grocery stores or like restaurants, like what is in the area. Pharmacies, yeah. Because something I did not consider whatsoever when I moved into my first apartment was the location. And that has also caused a lot of hardships over the last year, because I think like the hardest thing about living in my apartment, like location wise, to accept was that it was literally the same commute as living at home. Mm-hmm. Like, that one stung because I was like, why the fuck am I moving to the city?
Except it was also more stressful because it was on the subway instead of the Metro North.
You guys, then if you commute on the Metro North, that shit is so fucking civilized.
I know.
Like, are you like I look forward to moving home just so I can go on the Metro North, because on the Metro North you'll get a seat. Mm-hmm. Like 98% of the time you'll get a seat and you'll be comfortable and you can
quiet.
Yes, and you can actually, like, after the day, like, I feel like when I was living at home prior to moving out, like, you can decompress. Mm-hmm. Like, you can turn on a podcast.
You don't have to be vigilant.
Right. Because on the subway God, you guys. Like, oh my God. You have to be so vigilant. You have to be eyes on everything.
Very on.
Yeah. You don't like get to decompress until you get to your door in your home versus the Metro North. Like, it's just so much more civilized. So yes, it was the same commute, but it wasn't as enjoyable because I was so fucking alert all the time.
Yeah. And you had to make like transfers and it's like a whole thing.
It was just like a whole thing. And then anything that I like wanted to do for fun was very far from the apartment. And look, some people do not mind commuting, those like living somewhere where you can get more space, more bang for your buck, and commuting, you know, some people don't mind it. And like, that is amazing. I think what we were saying before is I have an anxiety disorder. Are you yawning?
Sorry.
Am I boring you?
Sorry.
They're bored because we're literally having
the same
conversation right now.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Are you bored?
No, I'm not.
You're just tired.
Just
sleepy. It's getting, what time is it? It's like 4:00. It's like it's sleepy hour. Olivia goes to bed so early too now, which is another thing. Like, something that we've realized is I have an anxiety disorder. And so while like, yeah, I could probably be saving more money, living further uptown, living farther from like inward in the city, I need more accessibility to things because I will not leave my apartment if it's not close.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of times, especially in the winter, I think, where you just didn't leave at all.
Yeah.
Because you know where to go, know where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
You know?
So this time I'm like, is there a coffee shop nearby? Like, I'm like, is there something that like because something that I do here in Westchester is there's a coffee shop that's like a 5-minute drive. And so like, if I haven't gotten myself out of the house or I just need to like rejigger my brain, like I'll just drive there and get a coffee. So kind of like the same thing in the city. Like, is there somewhere within a block or two that I like?
5 minutes.
Like I would go to these fucking coffee shops, you guys, and try them. Like I literally did. Like,
I remember.
And make sure that I like it, you know? Because I think I just learned a lot this past year. Even though it's been really hard, I think I learned a lot about living in the city, a lot about what I need living in the city as a person with a mental illness.
Or living anywhere, really.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, so your girl's moving back home, which is crazy because I remember coming on this very podcast and being like, I'm moving out. Finally.
That's okay. I think it's common for people to move back home. I moved back home after moving out.
Yeah.
You know?
No, my mom was saying that to me too to make me feel less bad. But like also it's
I
true.
think it's really common with our generation at least. You know.
Is that there was like multiple, and I know multiple people from my town who had like gotten a great COVID deal and then like their landlord jacked the price back up and they had to move home. And so that's the deal with that. And I'm interested to see how it goes, how long I'll actually be there, if we end up finding something after saving some money. So, yeah, that's the tea. And I wanted you to come and talk with me about it, even though you're bored.
Yeah, I'm bored.
Now I'm going to call you out.
No, I think it's the best decision given the circumstances and the realities of our, individual and joint financial situations.
Yeah.
It's just not realistic for us to blow our entire savings.
No.
And then be house poor.
Yeah. That was what my dad had brought up was the whole house poor thing.
That's just not smart.
No, No, it's
because
not.
how about the next time we want to move and we have literally like $100 in our combined in our savings, and how are we going to afford the next $15,000 fee? Do
you feel like you learned anything from this process over the last couple months?
No.
You know what that moment was giving?
Nothing.
Nothing from Dancing with the Stars. What have you learned from being on Dancing with the Stars? Nothing. I want to close this episode out, but very quickly, I do want to bring up everything happening with Chappelle Roan. And I bring this up because I think moving like forward with this podcast, something that I really want this podcast to highlight and champion is like mental health and like approaching mental health with grace and empathy and kindness, because I think in our world it isn't, and people don't really look at people that have mental health issues or mental illnesses like as serious disabilities. And I think I've learned over this last year that they really are serious disabilities that impact your everyday life. And you know, mine happens to be anxiety. And that's why this podcast is called Completely Clueless, because I lead a life of troubles with uncertainty. But everything that's come up with Chappelle Roan and how people are just absolutely tearing her apart on the internet for needing to take care of her health and having boundaries around that has been honestly very triggering to me, because I've had a lot of situations over the summer where people have judged me for having boundaries when it comes to my health and for trying to put my health first. And sort of what we've talked about over the summer, and I've talked about in therapy, that's been very hard for me to accept, is that I can place a boundary and say like, hey, you know what? I'm not showing up to work today. I'm really not doing well. And that other people are going to have feelings about that. And I'm going to have to be okay with people not loving that. And so I think you said it very well, if you want to say it again, about like how the people who bought those tickets.
Yeah. I mean, I think people have every right to be disappointed that she's not performing. And her taking a step back and respecting her boundaries and her needs is not lazy or entitled or selfish or anything like that.
Yeah, I think like what's been crazy is to see other people who have platforms, artists that have platforms, call her ungrateful.
Yeah, that's
telling her to grow up. Like, I get it. Like, I understand that there has to be a balance. And that's something that I'm working on a lot, is like finding the balance between, okay, I need to take a step back and prioritize my health. And Sarah, you need to push, you know, give yourself a little push.
Sometimes it's important to challenge yourself and do things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because you know that they're good for you, or you made a commitment or something like that. But there's a time and place for that, I think. Yeah. And there's a time and place for, you know, taking a step back and doing what you need to do to be okay.
Right.
You know,
and she took that step back, and now she's been continuing her tour and everything. And yeah, I just think it's so triggering and so disappointing, like watching so many people just like absolutely annihilate her and beat her up. And yeah, I think like the main thing for me was like, how is her prioritizing her health being ungrateful, or is, you know, not just not being grateful for what she has. I don't think that that's true.
Yeah. I mean, this is a whole other conversation that we could have.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think people don't have a lot of empathy because they don't understand. You know, everybody has anxiety, but not everybody has an anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
Everybody can feel depressed, but not everybody has depression.
Right.
You know, and it's hard to understand that if you don't have the firsthand experience.
True.
It's hard to have empathy for that, because it's like, oh, you know, I feel anxious every day, but I still get up and do what I am supposed to do.
Yeah.
So why can't you? You know, and it's like not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what's going on in her life. We all like to make assumptions, and like people love to assume they know what's going on in this like woman's life, but we don't. You know, we don't know the half of it.
Yeah. I'm very like anti-work grind culture, guys, which we can, again, like so many things that I'm like, oh, we could have a whole episode on that. And maybe we will, because we talk about that a lot. Yeah. Is just like, I'm very anti-work grind, girl boss. Like I would consider myself a girl boss. Like I think I'm a girl boss, but like also having boundaries around being a girl boss. So maybe like soft girl boss is what I can call it. Like,
sure.
Yeah. Like a soft girl era. Anyways, I'm going to stop rambling about this, but I did just want to give that PSA, because that's just the kind of space this is. So I want you guys to feel safe here, because I feel safe here with you. Touch them. Oh, that's so weird. That was creepy. Anyways, I'm going to sign off now, but thank you guys so much for listening to the Completely Clueless. Yes, that's a new title. Took out the curse word. Podcast. And okay, I may screw up the socials here because I've done a lot of changing, and you'll see over the next like couple of months, 6 months, 8 months, I'll be like changing things as I go and figuring this out by myself. But I believe now The YouTube, the Instagram, and the TikTok are all completely Clueless Pod. So there's only one, I was going to call it a hashtag. There's only one @ that you need to know to follow us. Please, in this new era, any sort of support and help is greatly appreciated because I'm scared as shit for all of this. And so, yeah, leave a nice comment, like it, share it with your friend. I'd absolutely love that. Thanks for coming on, babe.
Thanks for having me.
I know you don't want to plug your socials.
No, don't follow me.
Don't follow Olivia. They don't like to be followed, actually. But you can follow me at Completely Clueless Pod or on my personal socials at Sarah Alice Liddy. I love you guys. Thanks for being clueless with me. And don't forget to be motherfucking clueless. Bye, guys. You did a great job. Thanks. Proud of you.